Yes, hello friends. Today's discussion will be on a new topic, altogether completely new topic called limited liability partnership. Then, what is the essence of limited liability partnership? Why are we reading this act? What is the purpose of this act? And where are the subtle nuances and subtle variations which you need to keep in mind? We shall discuss today a beautiful topic and a new topic called Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008. Well, I need to give a little bit of background why LLP Act 2008 came into play. Then we will see, for the purpose of exams, how we have to prepare and what are the topics, what are the bullet points that you need to write if and when there is a question on this chapter. Prior to 2008, the situation was like this. Either a person, he could have done a sole proprietorship business, or he could have floated a partnership firm, or he could have had a private limited company or a public limited company as a form of an organization to do business. But let's take a scenario of a partnership firm who wants to do business as well as a private limited company. In a very, very limited sense, but a knockout blow can be given for this limited sense. The concept of partnership firm had with it, or there was an issue associated with partnership firm doing a business. That issue was a humongous issue. That is called jointly and severally liable, which means a partner, in case of the business liability of partnership firm, could have become personally liable. That means his personal assets could have been taken over to satisfy the liabilities of the partnership firm. Whereas the other extreme, which we saw in Companies Act, that is about private limited company, it stated the liability of a shareholder is limited to the extent of the shares what he purchases, or should I say, if there is uncalled capital still pending, only to such an extent the company could have asked the shareholders to pay the liability out of it. So one end we saw an unlimited liability being personal in nature in partnership firm. The other end we saw a limited liability to the extent of maximum the share capital of the shareholder, or what amount he had to pay only to that extent. So bridging this gap was becoming very, very important, and it was the need of our, considering the fact that the competing business, the competitiveness involved in the business, and the global nature of the business, wherein you can't sit and do business at just one locality. You are always expanding, or you are always thinking of expanding your business. So in all these situations, a thought process, a beautiful thought process had to happen, which I'm sure the government was thinking, and brought in an act called the Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008. So what is all about Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008? We shall discuss one by one. Act means it is given by the law, it is drafted by the law. So we need to see how the basic skeleton of the act is given, or is rather published in the official gazette, and what are the operating features of a particular act. So Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008 has been broadly classified or broadly divided into 4 schedules, that is first schedule, second schedule, third schedule, and fourth schedule. The first schedule of Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008, henceforth I'll be calling it as LLP Act 2008. The first schedule of LLP Act 2008 suggests or mentions what are the mutual rights and duties of partners. Like we have already understood mutual rights and duties of partners in Partnership Act 1932, similarly mutual rights and duties of partners in a LLP is given under the first schedule. We shall discuss that in depth a little later. Then the limited liability of partners and the partnership, wherein there is a case of absence of an agreement between the partners, then we call it as, we have to refer to the first schedule to check what is the liability. Liability shall be limited of the partnership and the partners. So in case there is an absence of an agreement, definitely we'll have to see the first schedule of LLP Act 2008 to get an answer. It's like this, in Partnership Act 1932 we have discussed stating that if there is an absence of agreement between the partners, the profit sharing ratios are equal. Similarly, if there is an absence of agreement between the partners, then we go to the first schedule and check what is the stand of liability in the case of partnership and partners. So we refer to first schedule for the same. I hope you got the point. The next is the second schedule, wherein we will see if you have to convert a partnership firm into a LLP, what are the formalities required, what are the provisions involved. Next, in the third schedule, we will see if you want to convert a private limited company into an LLP, then what are the procedures and legal formalities involved is given in the third schedule. Next, and the last part, that is the fourth schedule, similarly gives the conversion of an unlimited conversion of an unlisted public limited company into an LLP, its procedures and legal formalities. So, in simple words, first schedule talks about mutual rights and duties of partners and limited liability of partnership and partners in case of absence of an agreement. Second schedule talks about conversion of an existing partnership firm into an LLP. Third schedule talks about conversion of an existing private limited company into an LLP. Fourth schedule talks about conversion of an unlisted public limited company into an LLP. I hope you know what is meant by a partnership firm, a private limited company, and unlisted public limited company. Remember, LLP Act has not included conversion of a listed public limited company into LLP. So these four schedules are the basic starting point of an LLP to understand further in details. Let's see the other points which would probably come as a 2 marks question, or rather the different points of a larger question for the purpose of LLP in your exams, that is I meant. Let's see further. Please note this: Ministry of Corporate Affairs MCA and Registrar of Companies ROC, Ministry of Corporate Affairs and Registrar of Companies, in short form I have mentioned it as MCA and ROC, are entrusted to administer LLP Act. Like we know, partnership firm is governed by Partnership Act 1932. Companies are governed by Companies Act 2013. Similarly, LLP is governed by LLP Act 2008, which is under the shelter of MCA and ROC. I hope you are getting the point. An example would be Companies Act 2013 comes under whose domain? It comes under MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and Registrar of Companies are the person who administers companies. An extension of their administrative powers is given to cover including LLP also. So, point to be noted here is MCA and ROC are entrusted to administer LLP Act 2008, and the central government has the powers to make or amend rules by notification in the official gazette. So in case there is a changes required or new provisions to be incorporated or existing provisions to be deleted, who has the power to amend or make new rules for the purpose of LLP? It is the central government. It shall make or amend rules by way of a notification in an official gazette released by the central government. I hope the starting part is clear as of now. The basic starting point is the structure of LLP is given in form of 4 schedules, and who administers the LLP? It is MCA and Registrar of Companies. Of course, the right or the power to make rules and amend changes or make changes to the LLP Act 2008 is with the central government. Are we clear on these points? Let's move further. The basic question, what was the need for LLPs? The first point is an alternative for traditional partnership with unlimited personal liability and a statute-based governance to similar to a private limited company. So one end we had partnership firms doing business which had unlimited liability, and the other end we had private limited companies which were more organized and which had to comply with lot of rules and regulations, corporate governance was involved. So between these two lies in the beauty of LLP. So the point that I'm trying to tell is it's a hybrid mechanism wherein certain points of partnership firms and certain points of private limited company have been merged together to form a beautiful entity concept called LLP. Let's see further what it's all about. It allows the members the flexibility of organizing the internal structure like partnership. That means who has to do what role. That flexibility is there in partnership business. Whereas if it is a case of a company, then so and so directors have to be appointed. That directors have to play so and so role. To appoint the directors, there is a requirement of a resolution. Then you have to hold your annual general meeting. You have to hold your extraordinary general meeting, statutory compliances. All these problems are there is in the case of private limited company. So the mechanism of organizing your corporate structure becomes that much more difficult in a private limited company vis-a-vis a partnership firm. So they have taken a beautiful point of partnership firm, that is your internal structures can be organized the way you want it in an LLP. That is what he meant. It allows its members the flexibility of organizing the internal structure like a partnership by just an agreement between the partners, but it also has a beautiful concept borrowed from a private limited company, that is limited liability. So one point of partnership firm which states that you can organize your internal structure the way you want it by way of an agreement between the partners, and the second point borrowed from the private limited company, which is limited liability, are the two beautiful hallmarks in the case of LLP form of an organization. Let us see further what it also means. It means that is LLP itself is a separate legal entity. Like we know, partnership firm is a separate legal entity. Company, that is private limited company, is a separate legal entity. LLP also becomes a separate legal entity and will be liable for full extent of its assets. So its balance sheet, where it has its assets, it has to take care of the liabilities. So in case tomorrow if there is an issue that the LLP has to close down, sell all the assets and repay the liabilities. As an extension, keep this point in mind, liability of the partners is limited. I hope you're getting this important point, important juncture of LLP, wherein it states LLP is a separate legal entity. It has to take care of its liability by its own assets. You can't hold the partners who are running the LLP personally liable, which means the liability of the partners who are running the entity of LLP is having limited liability. That's the beauty of LLP. Let us see further some of the important definitions. Of course, I have skipped some of the definitions which I'm sure you can handle it by yourself. These are one-line definitions like that. For example, what is meant by a financial year? All these things can be taken care by yourself. Important points I felt that I should discuss as far as definitions is concerned is marked here. Let me do it one by one. Some of the important definitions. First one, what is meant by a body corporate? A body corporate means a company as defined under Section 3 of Companies Act 2013. Remember the last part of this section. Means a company as defined under Section 3 of Companies Act 2013 and includes, from here this is an important point, and includes first LLP registered under LLP Act 2008. So if an entity is registered as a LLP under Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008, it gets the status of a body corporate. we have understood that as a definition, under the definition of person, person includes a body corporate. So here we come up with a beautiful topic that if person includes body corporate includes LLP, which is registered under LLP Act 2008. I hope you got the link. Further, if an LLP is incorporated outside India, then also it is called as a body corporate. And further, if a company is incorporated outside India, then also it is called as a body corporate. Please do not get confused. I am not telling a LLP or a company incorporated outside India is an LLP. I never meant it. I meant a company incorporated outside India is nothing but a body corporate. Body corporate also includes a company which is incorporated outside India, a LLP which is incorporated outside India, and an LLP which is registered under LLP Act 2008. Are we clear on this topic, my dear friends? Yes. Further, a body corporate does not include a sole corporation, like for example an OPC, one person company, because body corporate, by the word body corporate, it means multiple people getting involved over there. A classic example would be a sole proprietorship business cannot be treated as a body corporate. Second, a cooperative society, because cooperative society gets governed by its own respective act of Cooperative Societies Act 1912, and any other body corporate notified by the central government in official gazette. This classic example I could give is Life Insurance Corporation. It is a body set up under the Act of Parliament, and it has its own rules and regulations. It doesn't come under the Companies Act 2013. So any other body corporate notified by the Act, by the central government in the official gazette. So if there is a notification by way of an official gazette by the central government that such an entity is an entity, that entity cannot be termed as a body corporate because it has its own set and rules and regulations by its own act. Are we clear on this, my dear friends? So the summary point which can come for a 2 marks question is the definition of a body corporate. Body corporate means a company as defined under section 3 of the Companies Act 2013 and includes 3, that is LLP registered under LLP Act 2008, an LLP registered outside India, and a company incorporated outside India, but it does not include a sole corporation, that is for example a sole proprietorship, and a cooperative society because it has its own act, and any other body corporate, for example Life Insurance Corporation, which has its own act, will not be treated as a body corporate. I hope you got these points. Going further, LLP agreement, what does it mean? Like we have partnership agreement under Partnership Act 1932, we also have something called LLP agreement under LLP Act. Let's see the definition. Means a written agreement between the partners of LLP or between the LLP and its partners, which determines the mutual rights and duties of the partners and their rights and duties in relation to LLP. It's quite similar to the rights and duties of partners in Partnership Act 1932. So we have a similar parallel provision, that is, it talks about an agreement which considers these following facts, wherein who are the partners, what are their details, personal details, what are their mutual rights and duties between themselves, and what are their mutual rights or what are their rights and duties vis-a-vis the partnership, that is vis-a-vis the LLP itself. That is what I meant, between the partners or between the LLP and its partners, which determines the mutual rights of the partners. So primarily it determines the mutual rights between the partners and rights and duties in relation to that LLP. So the rights and duties of that LLP also is should be discussed in a partnership agreement, and the mutual rights and duties of the partners also should be specified in such an agreement. Sir, what happens if there is no agreement between the partners in an LLP? As I told you, we go back to first schedule, refer the second point, we will get an answer to the same, wherein in an absence of an agreement between the partners of an LLP, we refer to the first schedule, wherein de facto or by default, these are the points mentioned, or these should be the points which should be mentioned if there is an absence of an agreement, would have been given under the first schedule. So we refer to the first schedule to get an answer if there is no LLP agreement. Are we clear on this second definition, my dear friends? Fantastic. Next, third, who is a partner? That is, the definition of partner means any person who becomes a partner in LLP in accordance with the LLP agreement. So in accordance with the LLP agreement, any person who becomes a partner is termed as a partner of the LLP. So this is also in line with what you have understood like admission of partner in the Partnership Act 1932. So here what we say is a partner is a partner who is a person who becomes a partner in an LLP according to LLP agreement. We do not say according to partnership agreement. I hope you got the simple differentiation between these two. Next, we shall see an important aspect of the differences, or rather the non-applicability of Partnership Act 1932 in LLP Act 2008. Important point, please observe this. Non-applicability of Indian Partnership Act 1932 in LLP Act 2008. That means the provisions mentioned in Partnership Act 1932 do not apply for LLP Act 2008. Let's see some of the important points there. An individual cannot become a partner of an LLP if an individual cannot become a partner of an LLP if he is found of an unsound mind by the court and the same is in force. Fair enough, he cannot enter into a contract because Contract Act 1872 states that if you are an unsound mind, your capacity to contract is not available with you. Therefore, you cannot enter into a contract. Once you cannot enter into a contract, you cannot become a partner of an LLP. So the first point is very categorically stating that if you are found of an unsound person, or if you are an unsound mind, then you cannot become a partner of an LLP. Who declares you as an unsound mind? The court. And just because the court has declared you as an unsound mind, it doesn't mean that you are still an unsound mind, but the concept of unsound mind should be still in force in you. It could be quite possible that for a particular duration you are of an unsound mind. Later on, due to medical treatment, you might come out of it. Just because you are declared unsound mind sometime long before, you cannot suffer the same deficiency even now. Once your unsound mind concept goes out of you, if you are declared fit by the medical representatives, then definitely at that point of time you can become a partner. I hope you got the point. Next, if he is an undischarged insolvent. Insolvent means, as we already know, during the normal course of a business, if any person is unable to pay his debts, where his debts far exceeds his liabilities, far exceeds his assets, his liabilities far exceeds his assets, then such person is termed as an insolvent, where he is still undischarged. That means he is not yet completed his term of insolvency. Then he is called as an undischarged insolvent. If you are an undischarged insolvent, you cannot become the partner of an LLP. Clear? Next. If he is applied, interesting point, if he is applied to be adjudicated as an insolvent and the application is still pending. So if a person feels that, oh, I am not able to do business henceforth, my liabilities are far exceeding my assets, I am unable to make payments in due course of my business, he has the choice to go to the court of law and declare himself as an insolvent person. For that, there is a process. First, he has to go and apply by way of an application to the court, and the court proceedings takes place. Just because the court's proceeding is taking place, are you an insolvent? No. Mind it, you cannot become a partner of an LLP even if you have just applied to be adjudicated as an insolvent and the application is still pending. So the fact that application of you to the court that please declare me as an insolvent, if that itself is pending, is sufficient for you to be termed as a person not capable of becoming a partner in an LLP. Is it confusing? Simple. if you have just applied to the court to be declared as an insolvent, and if the application is still pending, you cannot be treated as a partner of an LLP. As simple as that. Next, there should be minimum 2 partners in an LLP. Of course, we know that because in partnership also there should be minimum 2 partners. But the interesting point is the last point. Please have intense concentration on this last point, because it differs in a very large way when it is compared to Partnership Act 1932. Check this. If partners are reduced below 2, parallelly, please think of what is happening in Partnership Act also. If partners are reduced below 2 and the business is carried on for more than 6 months, then the only partner of the LLP shall be personally liable for obligations of LLP during such period. So I am trying to differentiate here itself what happens in Partnership Act 1932 and what is happening in LLP Act 2008. Let's say there were 2 partners in a partnership firm and in LLP. If one of the partner, let's say he dies or retires, and you find a clause in the partnership agreement which states that a death or a retirement of an existing partner shall not be termed as closure of partnership or dissolution of partnership, partnership still continues provided there is somebody or there is someone new person getting admitted to the firm in a short span of time. The clarity of when at what duration is not given in the Partnership Act 1932, whereas in the case of Partnership LLP Act 2008, very clearly they have defined stating that if by chance the partners in LLP reduces below 2 and the business is continued, provided there was a clause in the LLP agreement, if the business is continued for a period beyond 6 months by only one partner in the LLP, then such partner of the LLP shall be personally liable. Till now we had discussed only about limited liability of the partner. Here we are trying to understand that if the partner continues the business with only one member or one person in the LLP for a period beyond 6 months, then he shall be personally liable for any obligations of the LLP during such period. Are you getting the point? Vis-a-vis partnership, if lesser than 2 and if the person continues, yes, his personal liability is there, we know that. Just for example, if there was a case where one of the partner dies and the other remaining partner was continuing, let's say after 3 months he inducted a new partner, during this 3 months period, his personal liability is always was applicable in the case of Partnership Act 1932. When compared to that, in the case of LLP Act, very categorically it states, if you run the business beyond 6 months, getting the point? If you run the business as a sole person without admitting a new person in the LLP for a period beyond 6 months, only then personal liability of such partner of the LLP becomes applicable. Till that, if by chance before 6 months you bring in a new partner who gets admitted to the LLP, then this provision will not be applicable. That is, the personal liability provision will not be applicable. So these were all the points, my dear friends, as a kickstart or introductory session of LLP Act 2008. We shall be discussing further more details of all these points or more points which is more relevant to your exams and what are the different dimensions for business thinking as far as LLP is concerned. We shall discuss in the coming sessions. Thank you so much. If you have any doubts, please do mail it to lloydsacademy@gmail.com. I will revert back to you. Thank you.